Hello everyone. Okay, we're gonna be starting now. Hi. So today it is only me, unfortunately. But I do have some things in mind to talk about. I did not come here entirely unprepared. Well, a little unprepared. But I thought it would be good to just go over how this project is going so far. I know it's just started, but I mean, it can't hurt just to talk a little bit about how it's going so far, my plans for the future moving forward. And yeah, I think talking about that will make it more clear for myself, as well as maybe give some people out there a better idea of what this is all about. Yeah, so let's dive into that. And I thought it would be fun to do to pull a card out of my tarot deck just for fun and to get the creative juices running, not to be too overly stiff and pedantic. So let me gather my cards. I just have a few here. I'm not gonna use the whole deck. There was a while when I was very into tarot cards. I still am, but not as crazy about them. There's something so comforting about having somewhere to go to and look for answers when you are uncertain. I'm gonna shuffle them. I think it's really more, I think about it logically as tapping into your intuition, and then if I'm not thinking logically, I just think it's magical. Yeah. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna shuffle them a little more. Okay. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Interesting. We pulled an 8 of fire. So this deck is based on herbs and plant stuff. So it's ginger. And I'm, to be honest, not entirely familiar with this deck. So what we're gonna do is look up exactly what 8 of fire is in the little book that comes with the cards. Ba-ba-boo. Eight of fire. Here we are. No, that's 8 of air. Move the camera. 8 of fire. Know your limits and respect them. Proclaim your truth. Walk out through the gate. Walk out through the gate. Does that mean exit with grace? I don't know what that's telling me. Okay. Oh, I read the wrong page. Here it is. This is the correct one. I read the wrong description. Adapt swiftly to unexpected changes. You can handle the heat. Act quickly when inspiration strikes. Yeah, I feel like I resonate much more with that in the moment. I don't know about walking out through the gate. Yeah. So here's the card again. It's ginger. So like, you can handle the heat. It's that ginger is a flame in the background. Inspiration comes from all directions. Can you handle so many things at once? Swift action is needed, or you may be overwhelmed. You don't want to burn anything. Alright. That's fun. Next. Oh yeah, I did want to talk a little bit about just I don't know if I just notice it or you watching might notice I'm just very tired today. I probably look sleepy. But there are some days, and yesterday was one of those days, there are some days when I just start getting these answers that pop up in my head. I don't know if answer is the right word. It's more like things start to connect in my mind, and questions that I've been having or questions I've been pondering for a long time suddenly start to make sense. And usually that happens to me late at night on some days. And when I get one of those days, all I want to do is continue to find those answers and continue to experience those revelations, because these revelations, everything's making sense. I feel like I'm getting closer to something. I feel like I'm learning something. And so during those nights when I start getting a ton of revelations, I don't want to go to sleep. I want to keep reading or keep looking for more things that will spark more revelations, or just keep thinking about all these things. And so I usually don't sleep until it's very, very, very late, those types of nights. And so, alas, today I'm very, very sleepy. Yeah, that's just my short disclaimer. All right. Yeah, and some of those revelations I would like to go over during this hour or so. Just because I feel like they were quite profound for me, at least, while I was having them. Maybe I'll look back at this and be like, what? No, that's not profound, that's nothing. But at the moment, I still feel like there's merit to them, you know. There's merit there. And I'm just thinking a bit right now about where to start, which one to start with. Is there's a few things I want to cover. There's those revelations I had, and I want to talk a little bit about this podcast. Plus, I would very much like to talk about some of my inspirations and how I manage being somebody who is a little bit all over the place would be the best way to say it, who likes to do many things at once, and how I'm handling that so far. So yeah, okay. I think I'll just start with what comes naturally. So I don't really feel like talking about the podcast right away. So what I'm going to talk about first is a little bit about my inspirations, and I want to show off some what do I call, I want to show you my notebook, one of my notebooks. It's basically just a notebook with a bunch of ideas in it, and I thought it would be fun to show, and it's kind of connected to my inspiration for the podcast, and just showcasing how I store inspiration, how I organize my imagination. I feel like I'm trailing off a little bit here, so I'm just gonna jump into it. So one of the whoops, that was my bookmark. But one of the books that it's funny. Okay. So one of the books that pretty recently had a really big impact on me, and the work of the author is still has a huge impact on me as of now, right now. That book is Wishcraft, and the author of it is Barbara Shear. But that book basically gives you tools to get closer to accomplishing your dreams, and it teaches you how to set goals and figure out what you need to do to move forward to get closer to your goal. But the most transformative thing about that book was this idea that you don't need to do it alone. That was just huge for me to hear that. I didn't need to do it alone. In fact, you pretty much always need help from other people to achieve your goals, and that's not a bad thing. So one of the things Barbara Shear, the author, likes to say, she passed away unfortunately pretty recently, but she liked to say isolation is the dream killer, not your poor attitude. And basically, yeah, the book talked about, like I said, how to set goals and planning out the small steps to get closer to that goal, and scheduling and all that great Tim Ferriss stuff. But no shade on Tim Ferriss. But yeah, the part of the book that talked about how to gather people together and brainstorm together, and reach out to other people for help, and reach out to other people for ideas. That part of the book was what really impacted me I think in a deeper way. It impacted me. Where was I going with this? Oh yes, so that book was very transformative, and what I realized was that I feel like I had something to say, but I forgot it. I forgot it. Wait, it's coming back. It's coming back to me. You know, okay, drop that thought. But it's funny because that book, Wishcraft, it was on the recommended reading list on another book that I don't know if I would say it was even more, which book is more impactful for my life, but the book that it was recommended in is called The Teenage Liberation Handbook. And for all you unschoolers and maybe some homeschoolers out there, you've probably heard about it or your friend knows about it. But yeah, that book just tells you a secret, okay? It tells you a secret that most adults in your life, if you're in school right now, they don't want you to hear. And it really could change your life completely. That's literally what it said on the back cover. It said, "This book is dangerous. Don't give this book to a clear-headed, intelligent high schooler or a young person who is not enjoying school. Don't give it to them because it's dangerous." So of course, when you see that on a book, you have to open it and take a look, especially when it proclaims to give you freedom from school and take control of your own life. I mean, what young person doesn't want that? But yeah, so I flipped that book open, and that book was a huge part of me making the decision to drop out of high school. Anyway, this Wishcraft book was recommended in the back of the Teenage Liberation Handbook. And it was not until a few years later that, pretty recently, when I found Wishcraft. Because the previous time I had read Teenage Liberation Handbook, I just skimmed over the recommended reading, and I hadn't looked into any of the books for whatever reason. But I read over it a second time when there was a period when I was feeling a little lost, and that's when I found Wishcraft. And Wishcraft helped me a lot in accomplishing goals that I had assumed were just highly unlikely that I would ever reach anything close to those goals, and goals that I frankly thought were pretty impossible until I reached them. Yeah, there's this thought that keeps forming in my mind when I talk about what Wishcraft made me realize, but for some reason I just can't find the words to it. Because I really want to explain exactly how it changed my thinking. I'm gonna just try to formulate this thought because I feel like it's important. I think I can only get a vague idea. It might become clearer after I talk a little more about other stuff. But I guess the vague idea is that it made me realize the importance of human to human connections and the importance of caring about the people around you, and like giving of giving an F, giving AF, giving any giving an F about what other people around you were saying, or just caring about other people, even if they might not seem so interesting from the get-go, or they might not seem so interesting after you've talked to them for a while. That I realized that it doesn't actually matter. So yeah, I think it restored a degree of humanity within me, which I'm really thankful for. And I think yeah, that's restoring humanity, a fraction of humanity in me when I had felt pretty hopeless at the time, because my mindset had always been people don't matter, essentially. That the only thing that matters is your skill level, which that your skill level marks your value, I guess. But reading her book really showed me that it's important to have these connections, because that's how real stuff gets done. Unless you're Newton or something. But I'm suspicious about Newton. Did he really just lock himself up? Maybe. Maybe. That's the only thing that I always think about. I'm sorry, I can't be persuasive. Okay, I'm gonna continue with the story. So I read that book. It was great. My humanity was restored. I was less of a zombie. And then later, the problem I came across was just having tons of interests. And I suspect that this is something that many people who struggle with school have to deal with. They have to deal with having all these interests, and then as you get closer to college years, the pressure to choose one thing or to know exactly what you're going to do when you go to college goes higher and higher, especially nowadays when you're spending a fortune on even community college. If you don't, you're spending a fortune plus at least 4 years of your life if you're not working at the same time. But yeah, if you don't know what you're gonna do, that's a lot of pressure, when even if you went through college, even if you did everything you were supposed to make and you made a ton of connections during college and got the best grades and worked towards your goals, there's still the chance that there's not a guarantee. There's not a high guarantee that you're going to get a job or be stable after going through college. Plus, for some people, that stable job college promises is not necessarily what they actually want from life. And I think sometimes people with multiple interests have a difficult time fitting into these kind of typical well-paying 9-to-5 jobs that are out there waiting for you after you do all the stuff you're supposed to do and go through college and get your master's degree and get your whatever degree and do this and do that. That's not necessarily what those people want. I'm speaking mostly from how I myself feel, but also out of a lot of assumptions. Yeah, because the thing is, I think people who kind of have their mind in a lot of different areas, and they're constantly trying to learn more about those areas and develop and combine interests. How do I say this just bluntly? I think those people are usually more suitable to starting new ventures or starting new things, or because when you start something, whether it's a company, whether it's, I don't know, I guess a company is the only thing I can really think of, but that requires being a generalist more than a specialist. And as that new thing develops and grows down the line, you need more specialists. But at the start, the generalist is really who powers the new venture. And unfortunately, I do not think that schools in general support this at all. Support those type of people at all, and I think that is a problem. But okay, so yes, so Barbara Shearer, to my surprise, she mentioned scanners in her witchcraft book, but she mentioned very briefly that scanners are people with multiple interests who jump from interest to interest and can't settle on one thing. I feel like that's quite a negative way to say it, but they can't settle. Settling on one thing is painful for those people. And to my pleasant surprise, she actually wrote an entire book about scanners because people had been sending her so much mail, sending her so many messages about this thing she just mentioned on the fly about scanners. They were saying how they could identify with that definition of not being a specialist but being a generalist, and having trouble deciding on what to zero in on and focus on, and giving up on things too early or giving up on things before completion, and feeling really terrible for that and feeling like a lazy person, like a failure. And she had wrote this book for those people, and in it it describes all sorts of different types of scanners. So there are scanners who like to jump from, let's say they have 3 interests, so they like to go 1, 2, 3, and then they circle back to the previous interests. But then there are also scanners who have, I don't know, let's say that they have like 5 interests, and then maybe they get tired of them eventually, but then eventually all these 5 interests, they're not interested in them anymore, and then they just continue finding new interests, and they never cycle back to those old interests. And there are many other types of scanners. I only gave those 2 examples because I think they're the easiest to understand. Yeah, and what really surprised me is that this idea of scanners and specialists and different types of people with different rhythms of learning and different rhythms of working, it's not really a new idea. I mean, according to Barbara, she came up with most of this stuff from talking to so many people and facilitating a lot of brainstorming groups. She calls them success teams. But this idea comes up a lot in Ayurveda, as well as some of her other concepts, which I might cover a different time. This will get very complicated and hard to follow if I go into that now. But so yeah, this concept shows up in Ayurveda. So in Ayurveda, which is this, I should explain that. Ayurveda is an ancient system of classifying people. It's an ancient Indian system of classifying people into there are three main groups, or it's more like there are three elements, let's call them elements, that can make up a person's personality or tendencies. And you can have a mixture of these three things, or you could I mean, everyone has a mixture, but some people have a main component and some people have a mixture of all three, or more of one and a little bit of the second one, or equal amounts of both. Let me go into more detail. So I forget exactly what they are, but I know one of them's Pitta and one of them's Vata, and there's one more. So Pitta's for fire, Vata's for air, and other one's for dirt or mud, I think. So people who have a lot of fire in their personality, they start out doing something very slow, and over time they will build up interest, like a fire, right? And then when that fire starts really going, they start popping off. Yeah, they start popping off, and as long as you continuously feed that fire continues to burn. I might be getting some of this wrong. Well, yeah, also I don't want to just regurgitate what I've heard. I'm trying to see how I can keep this nice and simple. Yeah, okay, so I think, don't quote me on this, but I think so a fire burns and then it kind of dies down. And then it burns again, right? So these people usually have long cycles of slow growth of interest, and then they get very interested and then fizzle out. And then Vata, so air, the people are like the air. They usually have a lot of different interests and go from one place to the next place. And what happens to them is usually they gain interest very quickly, but also lose interest pretty quickly. And then their cycle is faster. And finally, for earth people, they are very steady. Usually they will just have a steady climb up, and then they're just very steady for a long period of time. Yeah, so I think when Barbara Scheer talks about scanner personality types, what if you put that in conjunction with Ayurveda, she's referring more to Vata people. And maybe once in a while she's talking about Pitta people, but I think she's talking about Pitta, fire people, who are more intense and longer periods of interest, with those Pitta people who have some air in them, who have some kind of boop, 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 I have to do a ton of stuff in them. Yeah. And maybe specialists are more of the mud dirt people. I just thought that was interesting. Okay. So, I don't know, should I... I'm gonna close the door. I'll be right back. I'm thinking I can read just a little bit to give you guys an idea. So, yeah, I think what I can do is just read. There's a section at the start with the introduction of the book. There's a little section that is titled School for Scanners. Let's see if we can get School for Scanners, and I feel like that's related to this podcast, so we can read a little bit of that. I don't want to infringe her copyright, but I think it should be okay. Okay, School for Scanners. Where are the guidelines for scanners? Plain and simple, unless they are hidden somewhere I haven't discovered yet, there aren't any. If you have a specialty, say geology or fashion, there are schools with majors called geology and fashion to teach you. There are guidance counselors to help you make decisions. And there are recruiters to hire you. There are professional organizations and books and websites to help you develop into a successful geologist or fashion designer or whatever kind of specialist you want to be. There's nothing like that out there for scanners. If you're a scanner, you may have gone in for some kind of abilities testing only to find that you scored high in almost every category. Or scored low in every category. Okay, I added that. Career counselors aren't trained to handle that outcome. Yeah, I guess she means if you score like the same on everything. Okay. So far, the best advice you've been given has probably been, you can do anything. Just choose one of your talents and get started. That was also the worst advice. You can do anything, just choose one of your talents and get started. Yeah, that was one of the things I was told a lot. They might as well have said, we can't help you at all because scanners can't choose. And now you're learning something most of your career guidance people do not know. Scanners aren't supposed to choose. Until now, this has always left you completely on your own. You aren't guided or assisted in the business of handling your many talents. There is no academic path to train you in the best use of your irrepressible curiosity or to direct your fast mind into a multi-directional specialty. In business, no career tracks or job titles exist for the multi-talented, can-do-anything scanner. The go-to people who, even when they're valued by those around them, have no label that indicates who they really are. Our culture's pressure to train specialists simply isn't balanced out by any plan to train generalists. Okay. She talks a little bit about her book. Yeah, so then she just talks about how this isn't a manual for scanners when there aren't a lot of people who can guide scanners who are out there. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, one of the things I was told was just to pick something and go try it out, because that's the only way you're gonna be able to weed out all of these interests and find what you should really go for, what will give you the best life. And she says it's terrible advice. I honestly don't think. I think it's a little. She's exaggerating a little bit there, because yeah, it does help to do that. And maybe for some people, they will have a lot of interest, and doing this will help them find that one interest. However, if you're someone who simply does not have just one interest, doing this and feeling terrible because you can't settle on that one thing despite trying to weed out all these interests, trying every one of them and taking it seriously and feeling bad for that, not realizing that you're just someone who needs to pursue many different interests, I think that is detrimental. And yeah, I totally agree with her in that sense, that it's terrible advice to follow if you end up falling into that trap. And yeah, her book really aids in that, because it's just essentially, it's very simple. All she is saying is that you can just be who you are. Of course, there are things you have to worry about. You have to worry about how you're going to support yourself, what it means to you to be a responsible member of society. But with regards to that, I mean, keeping that in mind, you can be yourself. And if you have a lot of interests that you want to pursue, you should do exactly that. You should just pursue those interests. If you don't want to finish every single project you start, you should not finish every single project you start. And there's no shame in that. And yeah, a little bit at the end of that blurb, she mentioned how yeah, scanners usually don't fit a single job label. And this is something I relate deeply to. I used to just put artist on my LinkedIn, or animator, because that's the one thing I was trying to pursue. But nowadays, it never felt right to me. I always wanted to put every single thing I was interested in my job description. Like animator, artist, you know, reader of science history, interested in chocolate making, interested in aerodynamics, even though I know nothing about aerodynamics, interested in quantum physics, but I only know some algebra. Or there were so many things I wasn't really able to pursue further. Oh yeah, of course, linguists, like wannabe linguist, learner of Japanese, but also learning all these other languages. But there's so many things I wanted to pursue, but I never let myself pursue them, because I thought I had to stick with one thing to get anywhere in life. The thing is, that's not a very happy way to live. And right now I'm kind of struggling with my LinkedIn job label. I don't know what to put on there. Honestly, I just want to put my name again or something. I don't know. I don't know how to fill that. Okay, so that's a little bit of just me gushing about what inspires me. Yes, so I want to bring some of her ideas into this podcast, definitely. And maybe we should transition to talking more about this podcast. But oh gosh. So the thing she does with success teams, where she brings people together and helps people reach their goals by defining what they really want, and then defining very specifically what's in the way of getting what they want. So defining their obstacle. She does this, and then the different people in the group will help each other out, brainstorming and offering advice or connections they know, and just helping each other out. And that's something I want to implement with this podcast. So I'm hoping to get some of the people I've interviewed or plan on interviewing, excuse me, together to do a kind of success team of sorts, live or recorded. It's kind of an experiment. I want to see how that goes. And then I guess the other part of it is I guess I do hope that some of the people who come on here to talk will maybe be able to, well, I know they have a message for somebody out there. I know that, just like how Barbara's books have helped me so much. I know that they have a message in them to show people out there, and I want to be somebody who can just aid them in the process of sharing that story and sharing that message. And it kind of ties back to that humanity I was talking about earlier. And with my humanity now restored just a bit, I do feel a calling to do that. And yeah, like what I said, even if someone doesn't seem like the most amazing, interesting, wacky person, doesn't mean that they don't have something important to share. It doesn't mean they have no value at all. Because I said like at all so emphatically, because I really do think that that's how I felt for a while, and I feel pretty strongly about that now. And there are times when towards myself I still have those thoughts where if you're not a certain way, you have no value. And when I say at all, I'm in a way trying to convince myself. Yes. Okay, so this idea of being a facilitator might be the right word. Being someone who is there to just help draw out these stories from people, or give people the platform, as well as kind of nudge them in the right direction where they are able to get the message out to the best of their current ability. That idea came from this documentary guy that I've been really into recently, called David Hoffman, I believe. But I thought it might be interesting to share a little bit about that. I need to change screens for this. Give me a second. Okay, let's see if we can do this. This is the first time I'm trying to do screen share. Oh, cool. Okay, it worked. you can see what's going on behind the scenes. Oh, it's all my files. Cover up my files. All right. Okay, so this is our YouTube, by the way. This is this is a YouTube. Hold on, let me. I'm clicking the buttons on my phone to control this live stream. This is a YouTube. So far, we have 4 episodes. Thank you, everyone, for coming on, making this possible. Everyone is great. Oh, I'm so happy. Okay. And I'm thinking about changing this time to 8 p.m. For the next group of interviewees, for the next group of guests. We have 6 lovely subscribers and 4 lovely episodes. And then what I wanted to show was not that. Look, it's me. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Here, I love to collect interesting videos in playlists. And I have a playlist on one of my other accounts called Cool Methods, so of course this is more Cool Methods. So I have a few things on how to interview people. This is David Hoffman I was talking about. Okay, here. I want to show these 2 videos. Oh no, that's right. I don't have the sound. I did not prepare it so that you guys can hear what's going on in the computer. So if I play this, you can't hear it, unfortunately. Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah. But what he talks about is, yeah, mostly what I was saying. And I think I did a comment, I think, here. Oh yeah, this is what I wrote, some stuff that really resonated with me, but one of them is so easy to talk. It's so easy for people to talk about their failures and nobody asks, because he was saying how a lot of people he interviews, they tell him, you know, they tell him, I have nothing interesting to say. I'm not an interesting person. Why are you interviewing me? Why are you interviewing me? I don't know what I should say. This is interesting because for a few of my guests, I tried asking them, so is there something you really care about that you want to talk about during our interview? And the funny thing is, every time I asked this, it seemed to make the conversation very difficult, and it seemed like it was not as easy as I thought it would be for my guests to come up with a topic to talk about. And I was surprised by that. But apparently this is something that this guy has experienced as well. And I really agree. It's so easy for people to talk about their failures, and yet nobody asks about their failures. I think that's something I can try out. Next time, because I guess what I realized is that, yeah, most people don't think of themselves as interesting or special or having something of great and dire importance to say. Okay. Yeah, and then another thing he does is he tries to draw out this need in that person he's interviewing. He tries to draw out this need for the person to express that message within them. But he does not do this in the direct way, like I was trying to do, in a very direct way, saying, tell me that topic you want to talk about, tell me that topic that you know, tell me whatever that topic might be that is so important to you that you need to come onto this interview and talk about it. I don't think it works. From my brief experiences trying to do this, I don't think it works too well. But what David Hoffman does, what he does, he asks, why do you think whatever company or whatever person wanted me to come do an interview for you? And he says, they might say they don't know, they might say they're not interesting, but when you ask that question, in their heart they know. In their heart they know why they're there. So I thought maybe changing it a little bit to, why do you think I invited you to come do an interview with me? Because if that person really thinks they don't have much to say, when they start thinking about that, why, I think it will open the doors for that message to come out. Okay, and another video I wanted to share, this is not so it's more unrelated, but I just thought it was so interesting, and it kind of ties into this idea of having a lot of different interests. I feel like I've said that phrase so many times. And it ties into the idea of the philosophy of unschooling and learning without school, and being curious and discovering what you were put on this earth and meant to do. So yeah. So this guy, there is this amazing library run by Jay Walker. I think this is in Connecticut, I think, but it's just like any normal library. However, it's not any normal library. There's all sorts of interesting stuff here. And what this guy does is he collects things. And these are all sorts of things with story behind them. And the interesting part about it is that the things in this library are all related to imagination and human invention and human creativity. So I thought that was so interesting. And just really sparks something within you. I'm just going around trying to find something I can talk a little bit. I guess, yeah, well, the thing that I really enjoyed was seeing Jay Walker show the kids all these interesting things and explain the story behind them, and just expressing how amazing it is for humans to be able to come up with all sorts of ideas and all sorts of solutions to problems, and come up with solutions that are so simple yet genius. So simple yet genius. And seeing the kids, seeing their eyes light up when he was talking about all this stuff, just I really liked that. And I was thinking, isn't that what school is supposed to be for? Isn't school, especially primary and secondary school, isn't it supposed to be a place where children can go and discover the magic of using the full potential of their imagination and discovering how other people in history have exercised the amazing capabilities of the human brain. And I'm sure if you spent a few weeks, a few days in a place like this, just exploring, I'm sure that any child would come to a greater understanding of themselves just from doing that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's all I really want to say about that. Let me switch back to my web camera. No. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. Should be back to the web camera. Looks good. I'm gonna close this tab. Okay. I don't know if I stayed on topic at all. I just feel like I started gushing about I don't know. I feel like I really lost my essay. My essay fell apart for a moment. Well, why don't we continue destroying the 3-paragraph essay? It wasn't a 3-paragraph essay anyway. Yeah, okay. I think I know. Well, I just have to, okay? So, yeah, there's stuff I feel like I shouldn't talk about just because I feel like it's not following the rhythm of this video as it's going. But I can't resist. I have to talk about it. Cuz it's too good, okay? It's about being a lighthouse and being a hippo. Let me explain. So being a lighthouse. There's a lovely game that I played a few months ago called To the Moon. And in To the Moon, one of the characters she has Asperger's syndrome, while Asperger's syndrome was still a thing. But this character has a lot of trouble connecting with other people, and that having trouble connecting with other people is something that I very deeply relate to, especially the way that she describes that in one of the scenes in that video game. And I just feel myself getting emotional every time I talk about this. I just get a little emotional. Oh my gosh, when that scene in the video game happened, I was just crying, and that really resonated with me. I just hope I can explain it well. So what this character says, she's explaining it to this other character. So she's explaining, and they're looking at this night sky. But she's explaining how all the stars in the night sky, she thinks that all those stars, well, she likes to imagine that they're all lighthouses. And they're all shining their light upon each other. And what she wants to do, even though she's so far away, or she feels like she can't connect with other people, she wants to be a lighthouse. She wants to be a lighthouse, and even though she can't reach out to people in the same way she sees the people around her doing so, and can't make those, she can't get that feeling of connection, feels very isolated and lonely, she feels happy. She would feel, she okay, she wants to just be a lighthouse and shine her light on other people and provide that for other people. I really hope I'm not butchering that. And that is something that I've wanted to do, or I've recently, or I don't know, I've wanted to create some sort of space, some sort of something where I can provide that for others and provide that space for others. Because yeah, I think loneliness is a big problem. Isolation is the dream killer. Loneliness kills so many dreams. It kills a lot of people too. And I think it's, I mean, there's coronavirus pandemic, and the loneliness epidemic is very much similar in a lot of ways. I don't know if it's a pandemic, but it's silent, it's you know, it strikes pretty hard on the vulnerable. And I'm not trying to downplay COVID here. I just feel like this loneliness problem is a big problem as well. Of course, COVID is a very immediate problem. You know, I'm gonna do a quick search just to make sure I did not butcher that explanation from To the Moon. Okay, I found it. I'm just gonna read from the fandom page. Okay, here it is. This is a much better explanation. I don't know, but you know, I'm sure there's something in the way I said it that where the message got across. But I do want to read the official kind of the original thing from the video game. So, okay. So as a child, she thought stars were lighthouses spread across the sky. River believed they lived a lonely existence, far from the other stars. So she wanted to befriend one in her lifetime so that it wouldn't be lonely. I see. I'm not sure, is that really what it was? Okay, I'm wondering, did she see herself as a lighthouse? I can't remember. Maybe I'll have to go back and check that scene. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm really going on a tangent right now. I'm gonna come back to what I was saying. I apologize for that. Okay, so I talked about, oh yes, I talked about being a lighthouse and being a hippo. So yes, about being a hippo. I'll just talk about this very briefly. The people who get it will get it. The people who won't get it just won't get it, and that's fine. Maybe I'll talk about it more later. So on being a hippo, there's I believe there's this delta in the Sahara Desert. I forget what it's called, but it is a delta. So when it comes out of the river, but it doesn't go into the ocean. And why is this the case? Because deltas usually lead into the ocean. So how does this delta get formed if it's not connected to the ocean? Well, what happens is that there are hippos. And what the hippos do, so they live their merry little lives in the river, in the kind of the area where the river pools up. But their feeding ground is far away from this pool of water. So what they have to do is they have to get out of the water and walk to the feeding ground and get the food from the feeding ground, and then swim or walk back to the river. And eventually, over time, as they keep walking back and forth on the same path, what happens is a little tributary forms. And as the hippos continue for walking towards their food and going back to the river, a bunch of little tributaries form into a delta. What is magical about this delta is that, so water gets carried through these tributaries, and what it does is nourishes the land around the delta. And if it were not for those hippos, there would be no nourishment in that land. It's the desert, after all. And so what the hippos are doing by walking these paths, what they're doing is they're bringing nourishment to the land around them without even knowing. They're supporting this entire ecosystem just by going their way. So yeah, what does it mean to be a hippo? What does that story about how the ecosystem works at that delta, what does that have to do with somebody being a hippo? So you know, there's a first hippo. There's always a first hippo who needs to start forming that tributary, needs to start forming that path towards the feeding ground. And this thought kind of came to me. I was watching a documentary about these hippos forming the delta. And this thought came to me that, oh, I'm a hippo. Because you know, sometimes there's this dream you have, or this goal you have, or this, I don't know, something you feel like you need to get a better understanding of, or pursue, or learn more about. And sometimes that thing is not very typical. So sometimes you're one of the first people kind of pioneering that journey towards that thing, towards that feeding ground in the hippo's case. and you're pioneering this path to that goal. And maybe you don't have many hippos around you, and there's no nourishment around you either. You just have to go and reach that thing. However, as time progresses and you continue going back and forth from that destination back to where you came from, kind of that pool where all the hippos are merrily living their life. Eventually, more hippos will go along the same route. Possibly more hippos will go along the same route that you maybe were one of the first to establish. And that tributary, that pathway, will get deeper and deeper and wider. And eventually water will start flowing. And eventually the land around that path you have walked will begin to flourish and attract all sorts of wildlife and all sorts of hippos to use that path. And you, being somebody who is contributing to this, what might be a new pathway, your actions are not in vain. Your actions are not in vain because you are one part of this progression towards forming a tributary. And even if maybe you're part of this progression of forming a tributary, but nobody really follows afterwards. Even if that's the case, you know that you've done your part. You know that you've stomped out your part of the road. And I just think that's just amazing. And that's great. And that's some encouragement for those who are trying to go a different way than what's typical and trying to form a new tributary in the delta that we all reside in. And that's on being a hippo. Okay. Finally, let's talk a little bit about where I want this podcast to go in the future. Let's talk about some real stuff. Some stuff rooted in reality. So, how is the podcast going so far? I think it's pretty good. Honestly, it's been better than I expected. But I do sometimes feel those pangs of doubt where I look down and I'm like, what have I created? What have I created? Is this really living up to all these people's, messages, potential? Is this really providing people with what they need? Am I wasting all my guest time? I do have those moments. However, overall, I really do think it's going a lot better than I expected. The technical side, there were some issues, but I feel like now I've got that figured out. I've got my nice Ethernet cable. I've figured out how to look at chat while I'm streaming. And even though not one person has chatted in live stream yet, but that's okay. I honestly think it's just, even if nobody shows up, it's good karma to just keep going forward with the idea. Because it's not all about the numbers. It's really not. Okay, I'm gonna stop myself before I go on that tangent. What was I saying? Oh yeah, it's going pretty well, and I do feel like I am quite lacking quite lacking as an interviewer. But you live and you learn. I think I just need more practice. I just need to get used to this. And what else? Yeah, so far the people I've had on are kind of, they've been more school related, I would say, more unschooling, homeschooling related. But for some reason, what has really been calling me is more of this creative entrepreneurial side. That's not the right word. This creative entrepreneurial theme. I just feel like it's the podcast is naturally going towards that direction, and kind of related to what I'm currently doing. I like my job, and what's kind of coming to me, I would say, is strangely this kind of startup entrepreneurial, these startup entrepreneurial creative opportunities seem to just keep coming my way. So I'm just going to take that as a sign. Take that as a sign and just move forward with that. And I did reach out to some people who are more on the startup side of things rather than unschooling and homeschooling, and I was able to find a few people who were interested in coming on for an interview, and that is scary to me because I really do look up to people who are able to do that kind of stuff. And maybe wrongly I look up to them, because at the end of the day, people are just people. So I hope I can get over myself in that regard. And if I disregard that, it feels very right to me to go a little bit more in that direction, while not losing this idea of self-directed learning, and always paying tribute to those questions of what is education for, how does school impact people's lives, and how school is connected to all these bigger problems we see in society with consumer culture, with homelessness, with racism, with the huge divide between rich and poor, with the loneliness problem, with mental health problems, with, I'm sure, with the shooting, with all the shooting problems in the United States, and with all sorts of global crises, with the environmental issues, with climate change, with addiction. Okay, I'm just not gonna keep going. You get the point. Yeah, I definitely want to hold on to that. And I know school is an integral part of all of this. I know education is an integral part of all of this. I want to keep the focus on people who have left school in some sort of way, especially those people who have left school or changed their mindset about education in a way where they were part of the system before and decided to, in some sort of way, exit the system, whether actually leaving school or changing their mindset. I really want to focus on that group of people. And then kind of combine that with some more creative and entrepreneurial aspects. Yeah, and I don't really think looking too far into the future is very beneficial. But the intent I want to keep in mind is always creating that community of, by being a lighthouse and supporting hippos. Supporting hippos. Because when you are isolated, when you are lonely, when you have all these ideas but nobody to talk to, nobody who can guide you, like the way Barbara was able to guide me through her books. When there's no one to guide you, when the guides seem to be working for other people and you just don't know why you can't get a hold of that structure and certainty that others seem to have, it's just means more than anything to have a community there, a community of people who will listen to you, where you feel like you can be yourself and be heard and support a community that can support you to reach your wishes, and then where you can find that joy and maybe get some humanity restored, where you can get humanity restored, find the joy of helping other people too. Yeah, I think it would be so great to be able to have something like that for people. Whether this is able to become that, I don't know, but I just want to keep that intention there. Yeah, I guess that's all I really have to talk about today. Next week we have another special guest. I'm just gonna call every single guest a special guest because everyone's special. I do mean it. I don't want it to sound cheesy, but I do mean it. I really do mean it. Everyone's special. Everyone's special. Yeah. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything. Or what's a good way to close this? Sayonara? The most difficult part of talking to other people is always the introduction and the goodbye. I struggle more with the goodbye, definitely. Yeah, moving forward, one thing you're gonna see me do, or rather see me stop doing, I've been introducing guests like welcome to Walk Your Path, this is episode blah blah blah, our guest for this episode is whoever, they've done this and that, please welcome them, and then I start talking to the guest. So I've been doing that for the first 3 episodes, and then for the most recent episode with Taylor, I changed a little bit where I just said welcome to Walk Your Path, this is episode number 4 or 3, and then I just said like, could you introduce yourself? But even that, I think I didn't feel right doing that. So what I'm gonna try next time, if I remember, hopefully, I'm just gonna say we're live, or just something to let the person know that we've gone live, and then just continue the conversation naturally. That's all. I'm not going to do any sort of introduction. I know podcasts or live streams usually have some sort of introduction for their guests, but like I said, I just don't feel like it didn't sit right with me, so I'm just not going to do it. And for the farewell, I always drag it out longer than it really should be. I don't know. I really don't know how to just say bye. Is there something I should say? Oh my god, this is so awkward. I'm not even talking to anybody right now. I'm just talking to the green light on my web camera. Hi, green light. Thanks for keeping me company. Okay, not only the green light. For those watching, thanks for wait, no. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. If you're watching right now, you've made it really far. You've made it through a lot of awkwardness. I appreciate it all. I appreciate your support. You can always let me know in the comments if you have any input, any ideas, any criticisms. I will read everything. I will reply when I can. And I really hope you enjoy what's to come and you enjoy the episodes I've put out so far. Yeah. Let's see how this progresses together. And wish you the best in whatever you're doing right now. And have a great day. Have a great morning. Have a great afternoon. Have a great night. Have a great early wee